Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another round of sound. It's the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. We're here talking about all the hot topics in Pittsburgh sports, and we have a lot to get into tonight. We'll talk about the Steelers, specifically Ben Roethlisberger. Threw a football for the first time yesterday. We'll talk about that. We'll also get into the 17-game regular season proposal that owners want. Players have not yet voted, but the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown will be the Penguins, who lost again. That's 3 straight losses in a row, all regulation losses. They're now out of first place. And here's your panel left to right on your television screen. We have the P and the M of the PM team. It's Andrew Filipponi to the left. In the middle, Jeff Hawthorne, sports director, 93.7 The Fan, and Chris Mueller, P and M.
And Jeff's always stuck in the middle of us.
Jeff is stuck.
Can
It's
you,
a sandwich,
can you
a P&M
like
sandwich.
Cook-off champion from the Eat.
Oh, that's right. You did win the cook-off.
Sauced
Congratulations. How
champion,
about you?
And congratulations to Ron Cook on the Roethlisberger scoop, Bob.
That's right. Ron Cook, we'll get into that because he did talk to Ben
Thank
Roethlisberger coming up. But first, we want to get into the Penguins. And the Penguins lost a game. Mike Sullivan, however, did not find a lot of fault with the effort. Thought it was much better than the previous 2, which I thought was obvious. They did play better. But let's start with you, Pony, on this one. Are you more encouraged by how they play or more discouraged, but 3 losses in a row?
I'm discouraged by the Sabres game in the middle. I don't think there's any excuse for that, Bob. The thing that I can't for the life of me understand right now is, Justin Schultz. How does a guy like that go 20 games without a point? Can you explain that? I mean, they're dropping like flies on the blue line. Dumoulin and Marino are still out. They're not going to be back tomorrow, so they need to count on him in a contract year. And he's a puck mover who gets power play time, and he's got no points. To me, that's one of the most underreported, untalked about stories, that you've got a guy that is supposed to be one of your best players who's doing diddly-poo on the back end.
One of the things I looked at.
I didn't think we'd get a diddly-poo on the air here tonight, but that's good.
I don't know if I have that in me, but those hockey visualizations for advanced data are tough to read sometimes, but you read the captions and they tell a big story as far as Schultz goes. He's basically not been a very good player this year, and he was kind of coasting on reputation from what he did when he first came over and helped them out. He's not a great player right now. He's actually a pretty bad player, so that's alarming. The other thing is, too, their goalies have played like average goalies in these games, I would argue. Matt Murray took the blame. I don't know if he really had to do that today. But that shows something that Evgeny Malkin pointed to a couple days ago, and that's the idea that this team is not playing the same kind of defensively committed hockey and hasn't been for about the last month. They've gotten away with it because the goalies have been really good. That said, I'd rather this happen now and not in 2.5 months to the Penguins. So I don't think it's alarm bells time, but you'd like to see them play better.
Yeah, I don't think there's a team out there that's head and shoulders above. I think losing streaks are going to happen. I agree with Andrew that the Buffalo game, but you know what? You're going to have games in the year where it just falls apart. That stuff happens. I thought they played pretty inspired today. You know, they go down to Washington, an equal team on the road, essentially lose a 1-goal game. And to the point about Justin Schultz, how about he and Pettersson getting together on the same page? Pettersson had that horrible turnover. He also got beat to the puck on the first goal by Washington. Both of those guys, I still like Pettersson's upside, but as a pairing, I don't know if you need to change them up or what you need to do, but they've been pretty
Schultz
bad.
is having a reverse Bud Dupree year in a contract year, and I think everybody is. I mean, honestly, I think everybody assumed that keeping him around was going to just be like this little Penguins bonus here because they don't have to trade him. They know the guy's going to play well in whatever minutes they give him, and he's played like a sixth defenseman, really, when they were probably counting on him to be, especially with Dumoulin out and especially now with Marino out, somebody who entered the line or who was in the lineup and playing really well every night.
All right, Pony, I want to talk, since Chris brought that up, defense. You guys have talked about it. Do the Penguins need to go and make a deal to bring in a defenseman? We saw Zach Bogosian picked up by the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight, who also picked up Blake Coleman. I thought was an under-the-radar move. Good for them. But the deadline is 3 o'clock tomorrow. They'll be out west. It'll be noon for them. What do they need most? But another question is, what do they have to give up at this point?
Well, they need a left-shot defenseman, I think, is the bottom line. And then you got to figure out just what kind of caliber defenseman you can acquire. I mean, you'd love top 4, but I don't think they have the resources or the assets to go out and make that kind of trade, Bob. Because when you go down the left side right now, what do you see? I mean, you don't have Dumoulin. Pettersson would be the next guy. Zach Trotman was in the lineup today. You switched Ricola around and have him. I mean, it's just that side of their defense is very unstable right now, and I would try to pick up somebody on the cheap, under the radar, who can
Yeah.
move the puck and help you there.
And it's got to be a guy that's having a down year for some reason, and maybe a change of scenery would be there. Because you're right, not only the resources, you don't have the trade bait, you don't have a ton of room under the cap. Plus, we don't know how quick Dumoulin's skating now. They may know that he's going to be back maybe on this West Coast trip. We don't know when Dumoulin is going to return. So if that's coming soon,
I'll tell
I don't
you what,
think you
Jeff,
need to do that.
Chris, I know we usually see eye to eye on things. If they don't get Dumoulin back, I don't think they can win the Stanley Cup.
Well,
I
not the way
honestly
they're playing. Not the way they're playing like this, and they're not. Pony, you're right. They're not going to get a guy who's a really high-quality player as far as a left-shot defenseman before the deadline, because the resources really aren't there organizationally to give up to get somebody like that. I don't think they can win without Dumoulin either, primarily because the only method to do that would be to have your goalie or goalies play out of their minds to kind of make up for the fact that one of your best all-around players on the blue line is out, and I just don't think that's a sustainable way to win. He needs to come back, and not only come back, but I think be kind of the Brian Dumoulin we all assume he is if they're going to make a deep run.
You know what, Andrew, a few years ago I said they couldn't win without Chris Letang, and they won a cup without Chris Letang, so I would never say never, but I get your point. But I think they could fill in. There's no one in the East. I know Tampa's playing better. I know there's some very competitive teams in the Metro, and Washington's very good. But I think they could get through, and then if you get in the final, then it's up to your goalie, in my opinion.
What about bottom six? Do you guys have a concern there? Because they've been using a fourth line patchwork kind of, and you know Mike Sullivan likes to roll four lines. Chris, I think they have to be looking at somebody out there, again, who's not going to cost an awful lot, who can come in and help that bottom six once Bukestad is back, although we don't know when he's going to come back either.
Yeah, that's a complete mystery. It's sort of the same thing as finding a left-shot defenseman. There's a bunch of guys out there who probably fit the bill, but what do the teams want? What's the market look like for these guys, even though they're role players? And then in the case of getting a bottom six forward, I think it's always a matter of, does this player's particular style, his set of attributes, fit what your team likes to do? That is all about fit. It is not about get the best player. There might be somebody out there that objectively is better, but somebody that is a better fit for the Penguins.
I think Jason Botterill might be in a situation where he's Dave Littlefield, and he might make a deal to screw the Sabres because he's pretty much done there,
Toss
right?
Larson out there?
I think that. Well, how about Sherry or Jimmy Vesey? I mean, those are two guys.
I mean, in terms of a guy on that team, though, that is a classic bottom six, maybe, I saw Sean Gentili write this, that Johan Larson is somebody that could really help them.
I don't know as much about him, but I just know with Sherry that he's been here before. He can play up and down the lineup, and if he's in the press box for the playoffs or even late in the regular season, it's not the end of the world. And his production stinks this year, but he's a change of scenery guy who has excelled here in the past.
I think you get Dominic Cahoon back, and if Zach Aston-Reese can come back before the playoffs and get something going, I think you'll be okay there, actually.
Real quick, around the horn, which team is the biggest threat to the Penguins, not called the Penguins? Because I think the Penguins, if they play some of the stuff they've been showing here the last couple of games, they would be their own worst enemy. But, Jeff, start with you. What team out there? I think it's Tampa. I think Tampa's head and shoulders above everyone else the Penguins are going to play.
I think Washington's really good. I think it would be a hell of a series, but I think it's one that the Penguins could lose.
The Tampa thing seems like the obvious answer, and I think it's the right answer. The year the Capitals won it, Braden Holtby didn't start in goal for them in that series. It was Grubauer, and then Holtby got to ride to the rescue. This year, it's not like Tampa's been wire-to-wire dominant. They've gotten red hot, and I think the fact that they haven't been like chasing some sort of President's Trophy or an all-time regular season record might take a little of that mental burden off for them. They have the most talent, and they have the best goalie, so I think they're the biggest threat.
Yeah, I think Boston's there too, guys. I mean, they went to the Stanley Cup last year. They seem to be a bad matchup for the Penguins. They've gone head-to-head. They never win games in Boston, Bob, right? I mean, I think Mueller had hair the last time the Penguins went to Boston and won a game. So that would be another, those two Atlantic teams, I think you got to hope for an upset on that side of the draw.
And that can always happen. There could be upsets, and you won't even have to go through those kinds of teams. But I think Tampa this year is going to be like Washington was a few years ago. They're going through loss after loss, early exit, and then all of a sudden, boom, they put it together. We have a lot more coming up on the program. I want to remind you, though, that the Auto Show, you know, is like Pro Football Scouting Combine. You can see what everyone can do, and then you have to make a pick. Well, you can make your pick now and save big during #1 Cochran Hyundai Auto Show After Party. Get double your Auto Show bonus cash plus $1,000 over KBB for trades and 3 years complimentary maintenance on new 2020s. It's only at #1 Cochran Hyundai Monroeville and the spacious new South Hill store. Check them out. Hurry in. It ends March 2nd. Steeler Talk next. The #1 Cochran Sports Showdown is brought to you by #1 Cochran. Go one better. And by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. Have a greater hand in your health.